If you go to a game and they're throwing balls 100 miles an hour and they're hitting them with a wood bat and the ball's hard, you're going to sit in the front row and see 10,000 people with gloves. You better watch out.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming back to another edition of Foul Ball Safety Now Talks. I'm here with Brianna Ludwig. I want to bring on some news. As people know, listening to this recording, they have known that we turn the tables on our guests, and the guests bring questions to us. So we're going to bring on our guests very shortly. I was watching baseball over the last weekend. Mets, my team that I root for, home game at Citi Field. And I see a line drive off of Cedric Mullins' bat go into the photographer's booth by the first base dugout, just past the end of the dugout where the photographers hang out and do their job. And the announcers made remarks about like how fast the ball had just gone into the booth. But what you heard was more of like a sarcastic analogy on what, the 4 or 5 people that were in the booth, how they reacted. Like, oh, it looks like everyone's okay. Oh, did it hit Joe's arm? And, oh, he can handle it. Some stuff like that, instead of like, why are they still exposed to these line drives coming at them at 1,000 miles an hour? And I just thought it was another opportunity for the announcers to say, at minimum, did you see the faces of those photographers? Because the cameras actually did show the booth, and it looked like 4 or 5 people confused and just looking around like, what just happened? And none of them looked too thrilled, that's for sure. I don't know why the announcers just don't get right to the issue and describe exactly what they saw, because what I saw was a ball that went into the seats that could have done some serious damage. And what you get is the knee-jerk reaction or the half-hearted explanation of what the announcers just saw, because the producers, they do have the discretion. The guys who run all of the cameras at the ballpark, they have the discretion to decide on what's going to be replayed or not. Not every foul ball is replayed. This one, it wasn't replayed. It just showed the reaction of the guys in the booth, or at least it showed the booth where these guys were doing their job. It looked pretty bad. It looked like everyone was like in shock. That's what it looked like. And that's not the way the TV guys announced it. So I think just another way of not really truly communicating with the TV audience, keeping them sort of in the place of content and let's continue watching the game and go get another snack and come back to the TV. That kind of attitude is what you hear from the TV broadcasters. And they are employed either by the team or the network. And a lot of times these days, the team owns the network. So you guys can figure out the rest. But, we continue to follow things in Foul Ball Safety Now. We put out a 3rd letter to the Queens College situation. Looking forward to getting a response and starting a conversation regarding balls flying outside ballparks, not just to colleges, but at the 169 other ballparks, similar to what happened in Modesto, California, where the ball flew outside. Unfortunately, it hit the woman in her head. And we got contacted by the law firm a couple of months ago, and we just learned, a few months later, that the case was settled in July. 2 years in July 23. It was settled in July of 25. I don't think the people in Modesto, California knew that somebody was seriously injured outside the ballpark, but it's not uncommon during a 3-hour period that balls, unfortunately, will rain outside. Unfortunately, it does, make contact with human beings from time to time. That's not a good thing. Well, I'm excited to bring on our guests. So shift to our guests. We're going to have a compelling, interesting conversation. I'm sure of it. We don't know the questions coming or the conversation on the pace it's going to go. But Brianna Ludwig, I want to bring you on. Say hi, Brianna. How you doing?
Hi, everyone. I'm doing great. Happy to be here. I'm very excited to get into this important conversation today. Our guest is a California consumer protection attorney. He's been practicing for 30 years, David Bush. How are you doing, David?
Oh, good morning, Brianna. I'm doing great. And Jordan, thank you for having me on today.
Oh,
Oh,
terrific, David. Yeah, looking forward to it. Yes, we wanted to have you on with us, and clearly feel free to bring in any of your personal experiences and your legal questions. So we're excited to have you.
still want the tough questions, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what we came for. The good stuff, right?
Yes.
Well, I got to admit that until my attention got diverted this way, I hadn't thought much about foul ball safety because I'm not a baseball guy. I admit that up front. I'm a basketball guy, football guy. Baseball wasn't my sport, so I've never paid much attention to it. But you got me on two things here. You got my interest up as a lawyer and as a sports fan because watching over, I run the basketball, the CYO league here in the city where I live, and so I mean, I have children under my first, third through eighth graders, and the safety of players is what we always focus on, and we make that the primary. And that would it's not just the player safety. To be honest, we would think about the fan safety if that were at risk at a fourth grade basketball game, but it's not. Thinking of the safety of the people that are at the event should be primary, either as an attorney, I think that, and I think that as a coach and a person. Like, shouldn't the safety of everything be primary of anything that we do, but let alone some sort of recreational activity, even if it's a business? So, and to be honest with you, in researching this issue, I mean, of course, the baseball teams are worth a gazillion dollars, right? I just don't even think it's worth discussing that the cost of the nets, maybe at smaller venues, maybe at minor league games or even a college campus, but for professional games, the cost of actually putting up the netting isn't really an issue. I mean, would you think? You agree with that?
Oh, no, definitely not. I don't think it's ever been a factor. It's been presented that way sometimes, that it's costly, but I don't think it's any excuse. A lot of these 30 major league ballparks are paying the salaries of 120 minor league teams. The least they could do is if they're short on a couple of bucks, they should give them a couple of bucks to have improved netting immediately. That ship has sailed, unfortunately. But yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, well, I guess I mean, at that level, I hadn't thought about, but should the cost of the netting at the smaller venues, colleges, high schools, places where the cost might be an impediment, should it just be considered the cost of building that field, right? If you're building a football
Sure.
stadium, you include the lights and the concession stand and all that. So if we're building a baseball field, we just include the cost of the netting out to the foul poles because that's the foul line poles because that's how we build baseball stadiums. I mean, I think that's where you want to end up. You want this country to end up, and I
Oh,
can see
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, but the standards are
So,
really it's above my pay grade where the nets actually should end or how high and far they should go, so that we can discuss as well, but I just don't know exactly what the best practices would be. But of course, nets, I mean, you see the golf ranges, you see those nets are way up to the sky in some places because apparently they don't want nets leaving the driving range because apparently there may be people on the other side of the nets.
yeah.
There's 169 ballparks, and we all can examine how they're doing business. But yes, the cost factor is something that should not be really an issue.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm just as a lawyer going down my checklist of eliminating certain arguments just so we get them out of the way so we can get to the good
Sure.
ones. And so cost is out. Well, let's just get to the good one. Just as I
Okay.
got prepared for your show and I started looking into this issue, I get lots of stuff from the comment sections of like YouTube videos where they show baseball accidents and things like that, and Reddit,
Yes.
and it's Reddit
Mhm.
discussions. And I think there's
We actually call them
one
incidents. Yes.
you called the what? I'm sorry, you
Incidents
kinda
rather
cut out.
than incidents rather than accidents.
It's oh,
We
yeah, just
we
like the cops.
we
Just like the cops, incident
that's
reports. We'll have an
we
we'll
looked
file
it
an
up
in
on some government the way to describe what these incidents are, they're not really accidents because 'cause they're sort of predictable, so if you look through the definition of what one is opposed to the other, it's more of an incident rather than an accident, that's the way I describe it. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Absolutely. All right. That makes sense to me too as a lawyer because it's an incident. We file, with the police or whatever, incident reports, not accident reports. And that's good. So, okay. So, what it got down to is I read through everything and I asked my friends that are more baseball friends, that are more baseball fans than I am, what do you think about a net in front? And I think what it comes down to, the main argument against a net is that it changes the essential nature of the relationship of the fans to the players and the game. By putting up this barrier between us, we're changing the game because when baseball, you got to look back to the American sport, right? Is baseball. Baseball came about at a time when Americans were still the hardy breed of pioneer. I mean, my dad's dad, the tough guys, right? The guys that are like, we can do anything. We can forge through mountains, and any sort of weakness was not acceptable. And so I think at the time, well, let's talk about that exception and some case law. I think and the bottom line is we don't even need to go into the details of law, is that baseball has an exception, an exemption, so that when these incidents happen, that they don't have to pay for them, right? There's no liability. And it's funny
Most
because
cases,
baseball.
Florida doesn't recognize it, but there may be one other state that's not recognizing, or two other states, or a few other states, but clearly more than 40 states are all about the baseball rule.
Oh, fine. Yeah. What was the first state you mentioned that doesn't recognize it?
Florida. We're
Oh,
familiar with a case going on in Florida where apparently doesn't hold any weight. So the
well, and I
defense
found
attorneys aren't thrilled about that. Yeah.
gotcha. And I found this California. They had the case of Mays v. La Sierra University, and I haven't had
Yep.
time to check that case out. But that seems to do away with it as well in California. That kind of case is going to be binding on every court in California. It's an appellate court case. Be that as it may, I think the question is, when you put up a net between the players and the fans, does that change the reason I go to the baseball game? I mean, some people say the reason I go to the baseball game is because you can just have this interaction with players out there. You can sit there and you can chat with the outfielder or shout at them or do whatever. And
Mhm.
you bring your glove because you want to catch the ball.
Mhm.
The whole point of sitting along the foul line is to catch balls. And, if you're putting up a net, it's just like another American move to put up like protection, to protect the individual, put up a sign. Where in other countries, like, you go to Mexico or Europe, any European country, there's a sense of self responsibility. And so does the net change
Mhm.
that? And what do you think? Does it? I mean, and you've
Well,
been doing this.
yeah, no, clearly, I think it would take some reorganization on how management communicates with the fan base and says to them, this is what we've identified. We're a little late. We're a lot late, but better late than never. We have to have an honest discussion with you. So if people had gone to Foul Ball Safety Now and checked out Exhibit A1, they'll see a report from 538 from 2019 that the guy I've been working with for 6 years now, Brendan, my colleague, we took a look at it and we incorporated some of our own research, and people can see demonstrates just how many foul balls there are. Hundreds of thousands of foul balls for professional games. Many of them are going into hot zones. Families knew this in advance, that they were sitting ducks in shooting galleries. They would be, did baseball know this for years? Yeah, they did. Why didn't they share this with us? I think families would like to know if they missed something. If we missed something important, tell us what we missed. It could have something to do with how we look at our own past experiences and how we think about going to the games in the future. So if management finally came clean and said, this is the deal, this is what the deal has been, but going forward, since you guys are so connected to the game and the foul ball experience and interaction with the players, this is what we're going to do. We're going to tell you exactly where the risky areas are, and if the agencies or the regulators get the memo that 18 and under may not be able to sit here anymore, so be it. To get the autographs and the foul balls going, clearly there's 100 different ways to have everyone rethink their day-to-day experience at the game. They can give out hundreds of balls every single game. They could let 100 kids have catches with baseball players, and everyone will, not everyone, but there'll probably be more balls given to fans than fans would have gotten anyhow. So sort of like a way to almost like get them into transition into what their expectations would have been or what their expectations were going up to the game. It's better that we have information that we may have missed. I think we can all agree about to that. Sorry if there's a lot of mud on baseball's face that comes out from it, but that's just the way it is. We want to know what we may have missed. I'm not sure if that addresses anything or some of that.
Well, you know what? It does address some of it, but what I'm talking about is, does putting up that net, does it change the essence of why I go to a baseball game?
Oh, no, I was just gonna say sometimes the player interaction actually can cause an injury. I've been doing research for the past week, just trying to catch some cases that we may have missed over the years, and just learned of an incident that occurred 10 days ago at a Royals game. A fan was heckling one of the catchers, and the catcher actually threw a ball into the stands out of anger, and it hit a fan who was not even heckling him right in the throat and left a
Yeah.
pretty gnarly. So sometimes the player interaction can cause an injury as well.
I hear you, but I'm
Well,
talking about not going to the
Right.
game to heckle somebody. I'm talking about sitting in the front row with my kid and we both bring our mitts because that's what baseball is. It came about as
Sure.
we came out of World War II and radio came about with baseball, right? These are American things. And what the
Right.
case law, okay, so let's talk about case law for 1 sec because
Sure.
the seminal case that talks about assumption of the risk. Well, we're all talking about assumption of the risk, right? That the whole exemption for baseball comes about because of the legal term assumption of the risk, that certain activities are inherently dangerous and that they're so obviously dangerous that if you participate in them, that you have assumed the risk of getting hurt, right? And the seminal case is this case out of New York. And I misspoke when I talked to you guys offline and said it was Learned Hand. It was Judge Cardoza. It's one of the most famous judges in American jurisprudence. And it was not a baseball case, but it was a amusement park case. And in it, there was a ride where riders went up this conveyor belt and the whole conveyor belt shook. And then the ultimate goal was everybody fell down, right? So the case is somebody's on the ride, falls down, gets seriously injured, and sues the amusement company. And Judge Cardoza famously in 1929 said, and think about America at the time, rugged spirit, all the stuff we're talking about, baseball coming
Sure.
about, says, hey, you know what? You didn't have to go on the ride. This is obviously not what he said. This is the summary, and I'll give you the quote.
Right.
It says, you knew what you were getting into. The point of the ride was to ride it till you fall down. He said, the timorous, meaning the timid, the timorous may stay at home, right? The timorous may stay at home. That's been the law regarding baseball ever since 1929. It's every baseball case or everything, that case is cited because that is the lead case saying our American spirit is, look, we're going to do things where we could get hurt. We're going to forge a country across the entire, 3,000 miles of this frontier, and we're going to form a country, and we're not going to get upset about going to a baseball game and getting hit by a ball, even if it kills us. That's you accept the risk.
Got it.
So, with that in mind, what do you think about the fact of like asking to put up nets and signs and keep people? I mean, is that American? Is that the American spirit? Has the American spirit changed? Or does it change the case law? I mean, these are the first things I think, and I'm interested in what you guys think.
Well, not from a legal point of view, but from common courtesy for the last decades, all the decades past, what has baseball been doing just to give you some sort of forewarning what really happens at the ballpark? Do they tell you in advance about what really happens every spring and summer? Do they potentially tell you that there may be 350,000 foul balls spraying all over the place, some going high and some going low, some coming at your neck? So you may decide for yourself whether your 4-year-old should be sitting there or not, taking one to the neck. Parents would then have more information to consider before they go to the game. So I got no problem. Baseball in 2025, certainly in the past, but in 2025, why aren't they just telling you? We love to see you at the game. You know, who's going to be the one to take one to the neck this week? What? Why are they sharing that with us? And why would they even market their sport that way? Because it's realistic that somebody's going to take one to the throat. And why aren't they just telling? Why are they just putting it in the tiny micro print on the e-ticket where you can't see it? Or maybe once you're there, they will actually tell you, maybe right in front of you by your cup holder from the seat that you're sitting right behind. There's a little sign on the seat that says, be careful of foul balls. But the last I checked, we weren't superheroes, and we're already there. And it says, "Be careful of foul balls." Really? That's going to help you defend your 4-year-old? We've interviewed more than 30 baseball players who are in conflict because they're human beings with real emotions, and most of them are past players. But they've gone on the record with us telling us they won't allow their own child to sit in those sections or their wife. The coach who died in 2008, Mike Kuba, coaching first base. At the time, the coaches were not wearing the helmets in professional baseball on the sides. The helmet wouldn't have saved him; it hit him in the throat. But at least there was some proactivity, and they were not wearing helmets. But he died. And what about Hunter Wendelstedt, the umpire who hasn't been back to work in 4 months? He was 100 feet away, staring without blinking probably, waiting for the pitch, and he's 90 feet away because home to first is 90 feet plus another 10 feet, so he's about 100 feet away. There's still 30 or 40 cities in America in professional baseball where if you're 100 feet away to the right, just past the first base dugout or the third base dugout, you are exposed to those speeds. So if this was communicated before the game about the risky proposition about coming to the game and the timid and all of that, that's one thing. Bring it on. Just tell us we're going to take one to the throat. Honey, let's go. We're take one to get the neck guard for the kid. Maybe. Or, maybe the agencies will say, you know what? We're in the United States of America. We're not going to do business like this anymore. Retroactive, all the people that Jordan's interviewed and all those people that have been hit in the throat or may have lost an eye. We owe them some sort of recognition and some reconciliation because those are the people that I'm becoming associated with, people that have been hurt and don't know how to feel about baseball anymore. And we owe them something, a debt. They are owed something retroactive, and going forward, this is the way we're going to conduct business. Assumption of risk will continue, or maybe it won't. Families of 4-year-olds will be more informed about how to go out at coming to a game. But it's just right in front of all of us to see, and I just think it's worthy of more minds, certainly lawyers to establish theories in certain states or to recognize it's time to come together. Take a look at the baseball rule from 1913. Why is it still applied in most states?
So let me ask you this. So from a legal
Sure.
standpoint, discussing assumption of the risk, of all those people that were injured, of all those people that were injured, not the people under 18 whose parents made the decision for them, but all the people
Right.
age of majority that were injured. If I ask them these questions, have you ever seen a baseball game before you went to it today? Probably all of them would answer yes, right?
Mhm.
And if I ask them, are you aware that pitchers throw the ball up to 100 miles an hour? They would probably all say yes. And if I said, have you ever seen a baseball? Do you know how hard it is? Have you felt it? I bet you every one of them would say yes. I would say,
I don't know about
have you ever
that.
seen a major?
Yeah.
Well, you don't think everybody's touched a baseball in their life? I mean, come on.
I don't. I listen. People don't leave the seats after something comes right past their ear. Everyone has a nervous.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, have you ever touched a baseball? Did you ever touch a baseball?
Right.
If you played baseball, you touched the
Yes.
baseball, Jordan. Most people, I'm going to say
Yes.
everybody, 100%, right,
Okay.
have touched the baseball. I'm not asking if they've had one whiz by their head or if they picked one up afterwards. I'm asking, have you ever touched one? Because I'm asking, the question really is, do you know how it feels, how hard it is? Okay. So when you purchased your seat in the first row, and you knew there was no netting in front of you, you knew how hard the baseball was thrown and how hard it could be hit and how hard it could come at that seat, right? How many of them would
I
say
would
no to that?
I would assume so, but I don't know if the couple, if they were both 18 and older, or if it was 2 people together, if they discussed
Well,
it, or did they really, really put 2 and 2 together?
I
I'm
would
Yeah.
say
talking
most people don't walk into a public place that's marketed towards children and families and assume that it's unsafe
I don't know
and
that you have
assume
I mean, Brianna, I like you, but I don't think you can speak for most people. If you have any facts to back that, because here's what I'm saying, what the law says. Look, we all know the ball goes fast and it gets hit real hard. And if you sit in the front row knowing all this, then you have assumed the risk that you're going to get hit with the ball. If you place your 4-year-old child in the front seat there, guess what you've done? You're a bad parent. You have assumed the risk of your child getting hit. But we don't want to send the government in to tell you what to do with your child. So you get to do with your child what you want. You get to assume the risk for your child, but man, we're
What
not. We
about the
think you're.
seatbelts? What
What
about
about
the
the what?
seatbelts? Didn't the seatbelts take that discretion away from the parents back in the
I
1970s?
don't. I don't know
Because
what you're
they
talking about.
the seatbelt law that
In a
makes
car or
parents
a base.
put in a car. Yeah.
If you're going to flip switches on me, you got to give me a heads up.
Oh, sorry
So
about that. Yeah, I was just giving you an example of where government thought for the greater good that the kids needed to be secure and they have to be in the
100%.
back. They took those right.
Well, not
So
just
we
kids.
believe
Everybody, Jordan. Everybody had to.
that's
And it's the
true.
same argument for the motorcycle helmet law, right?
Mhm.
And that's exactly what you got with baseball nets. Some states say, hey, look, we're not going to force you to put a motorcycle helmet on. Okay. But
Mhm.
if you assume if you get on a motorcycle without one and you get hurt, you're not going to be suing people and making them pay for your assumption of the risk. Now, the question that you're presenting is, does this buying a seat at a baseball game rise to the level of like a motorcycle helmet? And really, the question you're asking is, are people charged with the knowledge of how dangerous it is at baseball games? You guys clearly are saying, no, it's not. They don't have any clue because of these individual cases. But when you bring into the individual cases, you bring in the emotion of each person. Like, this person got hurt really badly. Look how terrible this is. That's terrible, of course, but in the law, we don't look at that emotion. If we're asking for personal injury damages, we'll look at it. But if we're discussing legislature and policy, we don't look at any individual case to decide it. Because just like science, no individual case is going to tell us the true story of something that's happening 100,000 times a season.
No, I'd say it'd be interesting to find out that if it was a survey done to people, if there were memos they missed that foul ball safety now could have provided in 1975 or 1985 or 2005 or 2015, that may have been relevant to how they thought about going to a game, attending to a game. Would they have liked to have seen the information? I guess they would have liked to. That's what I'm saying. And I believe that MLB as an industry could have shared all this information, all this data. They say things like the fans are not interested in netting. We can find quotes from management over the years that have said, our fans aren't interested in upgraded netting. They're not interested in improved netting. They want the feeling of being at the game. But at the same time, they're possessing the knowledge that maybe questioning whether these fans really do know the true picture about what to expect at a game. The Nets may have been crappy in 1970 after a 14-year-old boy died at Dodger Stadium. Was it at the right time to have a conversation with the season ticket holders that had tickets behind the dugout and tell them, hey, sorry, but we have to put the Nets up. A 14-year-old boy died in the same section seat that you sit in. You didn't know this. These things aren't reported. Linda Goldblum died in 2018 at the Dodger game also, but she was in the Loge level. People in that row did not know that somebody died. It wasn't reported till months later. So it's really just a matter of common courtesy. And if common courtesy was extended, I think whatever changes would have happened from 1970 to the present time, they would have happened. It would have been organic. It would have been like, well, enough people now know about this and or more informed. And you see the goofball guys with the masks trying to make a statement with the body armor because that's a little absurd. You don't need the whole head to toe thing. But you know what? maybe in some cases, it's just trying to make the point of, wow, I just learned about this in 1978. Well, look at me. I'm more in the know than you are. I think like all of this kind of stuff would have led to individual acts of, hey, I'm trying to make a point. Your kids are in danger in 1978, or I'm trying to make a point. It's time to have a conversation. I think if more common courtesy was extended from management, I think there would have been subtle or rapid changes. And I think we're still in the dark ages in 2025. We may agree to disagree, but, it's just really nice to have you on and challenge and push back and talk about cases from past that are relevant and that lawyers will cite to from, almost 100 years ago. So it's important to bring all of this stuff up. So thank you.
Oh, I haven't even started getting going yet. Are you kidding me? Well,
Oh my
what
goodness.
what
God.
comes to mind is you still haven't answered the question of
God.
when you put up all
God.
these net when you put up all these nets and you put up all these signs and you protect everybody down to the dumbest and least aware, are you changing the essence of what we're doing? Is there a danger element to going to a baseball game that people want? That's why we go to baseball games, so we can sit in the front row and catch the balls that are coming at 80 miles an hour. That's what baseball's all about.
Yeah.
The fact that you want
It-
the fact that somebody isn't smart enough or aware enough
Mhm.
to have what we might call common sense, we're not going to bend the law and put signs up everywhere to protect those people. They're just going to be evolutionary guy Darwin awards, right? The Darwin awards for
Mhm.
people that don't,
Yeah.
I mean, isn't
Natural
that it?
selection.
Couldn't you be a Darwin Award if you went and sat your 4-year-old in the front row at a baseball game? Like, who does that? Only somebody who, and no, we don't want to be protected. We don't want the signs up. We don't want the netting. People just have to, they got to stay at home. The timorous may stay at home.
Mm.
What do you think about that?
Well, I not much. Unfortunately, from what we know and what we, baseball hasn't invested a penny in you getting to know more about this issue in a legitimate way. They know in advance that your baby's in harm's way, and they're not doing anything. They're keeping it on the e-ticket way below. And once you get to the game, they may have that announcement up on the scoreboard. Be careful. They may have that seat sign right in front of you. Be careful. But you're already there. We're not superheroes. Baseball players are testifying to us that there's no way, no how they're allowing their kids to sit in those sections. And I believe that unfortunately, the legacy of baseball looks like crap because they haven't told you this. Again, the whole thing with Timorous, they haven't done enough to give you some more information at home to make an informed decision. There could be people that are there and they just, the harder the better. But I don't really believe that the people are there with the gloves rooting for the ball to come at them. And when it does, they're not in the catching mode. They're in more like defending their life mode. They know they're not going to catch the ball. I would say I could take a guess that everyone who brings their glove, and I would say if there's 50,000 people on a sold out night, I would say maybe there's between 5 and 10,000 gloves at the field. Maybe 10% of the baseball community brings their gloves. And the ones that do bring their gloves, I would believe 80% of those people are never catching the ball. It's deflecting off their glove. We're not all professional baseball players who are sitting there on our night off. And the ones that come at them and that hit their glove usually deflect. I believe maybe 80% it hits off their glove, it misses their glove. They're hooking 100-mile-an-hour line drives coming on the sides, so, that would be an interesting thing to study, that if everyone had a glove, how many of them are actually gonna catch it? Because those deflections off gloves also hit people and create black eyes or lost eyes.
I'm only using the gloves to demonstrate that people have knowledge that balls that are going
Yeah.
fast are be coming at them. If you're telling me I go to a game and I see 10,000 people with gloves, should a reasonable person would say, "Hey, crap, where am I going? 10,000 people have baseball gloves to protect themselves. I better get myself a glove." That's what the law is saying, that you're charged with that base amount of figuring stuff out. That if you go to a game and they're throwing balls 100 miles an hour and they're hitting them with a wood bat, the ball's hard, you're going to sit in the front row and you see 10,000 people with gloves. You better watch out. And we're not going to put up a sign to
Yeah,
tell you because that's just
I
ridiculous.
hear you. But their mindset is not to defend their lives, and that's what we has not been instilled in all of us. It's they're there to
Well,
have a good time to catch a ball.
yeah, all of us don't have that knowledge. That's true of everything, right? Nobody has all the knowledge, but you're charged as living in this world with having a certain amount of knowledge and knowing that a man throwing a ball 100 miles an hour and another man hitting it with a bat being 100 feet away from you, you have to be smart enough to figure out that you could get killed, right? That's what the law is saying. What you're saying
It's
is,
never
hey, that's not good enough. Well, what I'm getting is that's not good enough. We want more protection. We want the law to, and
I
how
have
often?
examples of places like Billings, Montana, where they put camp groups, right? I mean, in sections just past end of dugouts where there's no nets. Yeah, these guys are really informed. They're not, and they're
yeah,
not there to defend themselves. There's
Well,
just so much
it's not if
questions
they
that can be
remember.
raised. That's what we're doing. We're not. It's
It,
it's above
it's
my
not
pay
if they
grade
have.
to come up with solutions today, but I certainly
It's
want to
not if
put the
they have.
writing on the wall. Mhm.
Oh, Jordan, I'm always coming up with solutions. That's what I do. By the end of this show,
Good,
we better have
good.
world problems all figured out.
All right.
But the question isn't,
Yeah.
whether any individual has the knowledge. The question is, as a culture and a people, are we going to charge them? Are we going to pretend they have that knowledge because it's just so base, it's so basic that you got to have that knowledge if you want to live in our society. We're not going to put signs up everywhere. Although, the song
But signs
"Sign,
aren't gonna help
Sign,"
us anyway.
right?
Signs
Well,
aren't
if you
gonna
put up
help.
signs,
We're there
if you put up
already.
signs
We
everywhere,
wouldn't
well,
drive down a road where they said landmines because people would know that landmine's gonna blow. And same thing being in a baseball. There's hundreds of thousands of these balls coming, and some of them are coming at warp speed. And we need to know this in advance, and we haven't. We never were expressed
well,
this
when you say
common
we, I guess,
courtesy. We as a baseball community, the 80 million baseball fans, were clearly never demonstrated any kind of common courtesy about, well, in addition to your timorous coming to the game and knowing what you should know before you get to the game, we can at least give you this. They haven't given you that. They gave you microprint before the print on the back of the ticket, and then now that's not even around. And the microprint was basically nobody really ever studied it. It said assumption of risk. If you get hurt at the game, we're not responsible. That never really deterred anyone from going to a game. They could have done something. A one pager over the winter would have been a start, something that tells the fan base this is what we learned over the previous years, just to extend some common courtesy, life changing courtesy for some. So it's really, just need to talk to the people that have been hurt before, or teenagers that came to the game without their parents. Like my lawyer in New York, her girlfriend was blinded when she was 14 years old back in 1979. Lynn, my attorney in New York, was kind enough to introduce me to Jenny, and it was very nice to revisit her experience back when. And she's a mom years later, and she's telling us on the interview. Brendan and I are doing an interview with her, and she's telling us how her 8-year-old was playing Little League Baseball, and she was nervous because of maybe what happened to her. And the 8-year-old ended up quitting baseball, going on to something else. And she shared with us that story. And my thoughts were she was probably making him feel nervous. And maybe that 8-year-old is now 30, and maybe he's telling his own child, look what happened to your grandmother. So maybe you don't want to play baseball. So these families are screwed when it comes to baseball, or at least we've met enough number of families, 20 families and of victims and family members. Another gentleman who lost his eye, and of course, Linda Goldblum's husband, Erwin. He was part of our conversation, whose wife unfortunately died at the Dodger game. He was interviewed by us as well. His daughter, Jana Brody, she wrote a book, Sit Behind the Nets. That's a powerful title about somebody who lost her mom. And that's Jana. She interviewed with us as well. So it's something that we all should take a look at, and we could all give baseball a grade. We're all free to go back and give them a grade retroactively, whatever is our own cause of coming to the game. Or maybe, the billionaires could have done just a little bit So I'm sorry I have to be a little bit sarcastic or a little bit, I'm down on baseball because they could have done a little bit more just to extend some common courtesy. So, sort of that's where our mindset is.
I just think it's unethical to continue to market towards children when you have advanced knowledge of countless children that have been seriously injured, lives forever altered, and to continue to market foul balls as fun and step right up to catch a foul ball when you know that foul balls have killed people. And the MLB has all of the knowledge and the statistics that they've been gatekeeping from the public. All of the studies and research have had to be done by independent bodies, and the MLB hasn't been very compliant in providing numbers, though they track every single ball that leaves the stands.
Right. Well, there's definitely that factor, but I think you guys still need to think about this underlying American attitude that people got to have a certain base amount of knowledge, and that when you ask everybody to cater to the lowest common denominator, that the entire culture is turned around and lessened. Right? Baseball was a game of hardy people that went out and they you can catch the ball. It's the only professional sport where you can be a part of the game, where you could actually catch a ball just like the people. And now the people that are unaware and not even willing to put in minimal common sense want to take that away from us, is the attitude that you're going to run up against, right? And you got the law saying, yeah, the timorous may stay at home. And that might sound like it's 100 years old law, because it is, but it is as relevant as if it was written today. It's still the law that dictates.
Yeah. No, I mean, we've had politicians, there's quotes from Senator Durbin. We haven't been directly in touch with him. There was a contingent of victims that went to visit with, this is a group that I'm not connected with, a woman who also lost her eye, a gentleman who was at Yankee Stadium. He was a lawyer himself, and he was injured by a ball. This is another contingent that went to visit Durbin and Duckworth, or Senator Dick Durbin. And Durbin wanted more transparency from MLB, and we've been following that. You can see at Foul Ball Safety now. We don't have anything called the Manfred Minutes, but that's Commissioner Manfred, who's a lawyer who's been in the game for a very long time, and he's been commissioner of the MLB for now about 10 years. So Durbin was saying things like, I don't feel comfortable I wouldn't feel comfortable bringing my grandchildren to the game, or it makes me think about bringing my children to the Cubs games, stuff like that. There's a lot on Foul Ball Safety now. We want you guys to check out the website and all the research and letters we put out there.
A politician, when you put them in the public eye, they're never going to speak against like something for safety. And if you bring them an individual case of somebody hurt, they're never going to stand up and say anything that would seem to go against that individual emotional case. But when the doors are closed and they're with the other legislators discussing the actual law, it's going to sound more like this. So how many people get hurt in baseball games each year in the major leagues? I've seen figures all over the place, but is 1,700 per year sound about right, or is that low?
Well, that was the Bloomberg report. MLB, I don't even cite the Bloomberg report that often. There's an NBC study which extrapolated all the other teams. You can Google the NBC study from 2019. Maybe 5,000 people reported to first aid in an 8-year period. So that would be less than 1,750, but you're not including the study doesn't include 5 times as many more professional games where the netting may be even more inadequate. So it's really hard for me to say. Yeah.
So you're saying 5 to maybe 1,000. All right. So here's what I'm going to do.
The MLB level in an 8-year period, maybe 700 to 800, 700 per year. You guys can see it. It was 4
Here's what I'm
teams
going to say.
Yeah.
Let's say it's 10,000 people per year. And that's wildly conservative, right? That's way more than it's. How many people see baseball games each year? How many
80
people
million
attend?
or whatever. Yeah, crazy numbers.
80 million people. Yeah.
Or 80 million. Yeah, I think it's about 80 million. Yeah.
80 million people. I'm not very good at math. I'm a lawyer. 80 million people and 10,000 incidents. I need an incident percentage. 80 million. I got a
How
calculator.
how about 10,000 rocks coming down from a high rise every year? Would one be
Well,
tolerated? Come on.
if
Come
you want
on.
to
You
change the
know it wouldn't
subject, if you
be.
want to change the subject,
Yeah, I
Jordan,
just
but
have to throw that out there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
rocks
Uh,
raining down from the sky is very legally different from me
uh,
purchasing a ticket to go to a baseball game. You can tell because 80 million people go to a game and 10,000 get hurt. The incident rate is going to be incredibly low. I don't know what it is. If anybody can help me out, I'm trying to come up with it.
It's
But
all right.
it's
Much less than
lower.
1%.
Yeah, much less than
I'm
1%.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
You have a much better chance, like by 1,000 times, of getting hurt driving to the stadium in your car than you do getting hurt at the stadium.
We have not scientifically discovered how to prevent car crashes from ever happening, though it is possible to prevent anybody from getting hit by a foul ball ever again. So that is the difference, even though the percentage is low. So comparing it to a car accident, no one has been smart enough yet with technology to prevent that from ever happening.
Yeah,
There's
but
too
we don't
many
want that to happen, Brianna. That's what you're missing the point. We don't want it to happen, right? The risk is why we're going. The risk of the falling down on the amusement ride, the risk of catching a ball, which is a risk, right? The risk of missing a ball, the risk of the ball coming my way is what we go to baseball games for. And you're taking that away from me as a fan. And why?
I agree
To help
on that.
0.01% of the people that might get hurt at a baseball game. Well, this is how remember, I'm talking about how the legislators think about the law behind closed doors.
We want the court of public opinion to have us think a thought about it.
We started with the politician before the camera and your individual case with emotion, right? And they say how they care about safety. And then we were talking about how when they close the door and your camera's not there and your emotional case is not in front of the public eye, this is how the law is passed. We're not doing anything for 0.01 incident rate of 80 million people doing something and 10,000 people get injured. I mean, that's what we go to the game for. And that's going to be the hardest argument for you guys to overcome.
Well, we're excited to keep talking about foul ball safety, and we'll continue to be Googled, which is fortunate. Lawyers are finding us to bolster their cases. People that have been injured by foul balls have somewhere to go and tell us their own situation and what their thoughts were before they had come to game. This is all very important data that we are collecting. And of course, baseball players, we formally interviewed more than 30 baseball players who seem to want to get the monkey off their back, seem to want to unburden themselves about their own dilemmas when they were playing baseball because they informed their own families about where to sit, and unfortunately knew that the most of the baseball fans were not told generation after generation after generation since 1929 about what Judge Cardozo said. We're not feeling that before they had come to the game. We believe that based on what we're hearing, and we will continue to entertain people's questions or not necessarily entertain. We will continue to be here to serve as a platform for people to share their stories and bring more information. And that's, I think, the most important thing. We can bring all this information together, and we can have a conversation. So that's what we're doing here. I think this interview is terrific. Maybe we're winding down.
Okay, great. David, do you consider fans consumers, and do you believe that they deserve the same protections as other types of consumers?
Absolutely. They are consumers. They're buying a baseball and an entertainment thing. It's a thing, you know. Do they deserve the same kind of protections as other consumers? They absolutely do. Every consumer, but do they need to be protected from their own lack of awareness or even stupidity is the question. And to that, I say no. I don't need generations of people telling me if somebody throws a ball 100 miles an hour and somebody hits it with a bat and I'm sitting 100 feet away that I can get hurt. That's what I'm saying. That's what assumption of the risk is. So it's not any single case. It's a big thing. And I hope hope you guys hone your argument in because I really do have a lot of inside experience with the legislators and how things get done, elected officials.
We would love to continue this conversation on the air, off the air, to decide, best practices, approaches. I think this is a wonderful conversation. It's great to hear the pushback and hear different sides and arguments. And I think that's what we're doing here at Foul Ball Safety Now. So I think this was terrific. And we'll do it again soon. Thanks again, everyone.